Welcome back to another episode of Bum with a Wrench. I'm your host Daniel, and we're back on the 63 Fairlane. I might have another episode out of this. It's quite a process, especially when you're taking your time. Again, you can do this one day and have it be, somewhat right to it. You don't have to throw it together. So, but as you can see, things here in the shop go slowly. We want to make sure that everything is put together in a way that looks good and functions well and everything else. Not that if you did it in a day it wouldn't function well, but anyways. So where we left off was getting the alternator in the car. Let me get you in here so you can see where we left off at. So I did a little work off camera. I went ahead and put the fan back in it and put the new water pump pulley in it, because the water pump pulley that was in it before was for the generator system. It was this big bulky thing, and so there was because of the thickness of the flange and everything else, the spacers that were holding it in with the bolts, the bolts ended up being a little bit too long with that new pulley, because the pulley is significantly thinner. So these bolts basically went through the flange on the water pump and then hit the backside, or were very, very close to hitting the backside, which of course you don't want to do that. So what I did is I just took the fan spacer off of my 65. Well, it was already off my 65 because I have electric fan on that. So I took the fan spacer from my 65 and the bolts and used it on this car. And it actually worked out better because it puts the fan really into the shroud a little bit more and a lot closer to the radiator. There's still a good distance between the radiator and the fan, which is good. That's what you want. But the closer you can get that fan to the radiator and in the shroud, the better cooling it's going to actually do. So again, the manifold's on it. That's done. The alternator is in it. All the pulleys line up. Everything's good. I need to extend this part of the harness right here because the generator was up here and it reached just fine, but now the alternator's down there and of course it doesn't reach. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the harness up, and right about here I'm going to go ahead and chop off all these wires, and then I'm going to mount these to the alternator, and then I'm going to put a jumper in the harness. So you won't see the jumper, but what you'll see is you'll see all your wire colors connected to the alternator the way they should be, and on the other side at the regulator the same. They're all matching up. So if you're pinning out between the alternator and your regulator, you know which wire is which, and you're not just dealing with all black wires or all red wires or whatever I put in here. But inside the harness right here, they'll be all one common color, because I just don't have the provisions for all of the different gauges and all of the different colors and all of the, that would take up a lot of space. So I do a lot more than just wiring in here. So that I need to do that, and then that'll hook the alternator up and we can test on that. I do have the harness in the car right now. In a minute we'll go in and we'll see that. I'm just doing fitment, and so the last bit of the harness that I have to do is just the engine harness that goes across here. There's 3 circuits that go in here. I only need 2 of them. Remember, we were talking about repurposing circuits. I'm going to take the oil pressure circuit that was down there on the oil pressure, and I'm going to run that over and now use that as a tack. And then I'm going to take the water temperature and use that on the coil, 12-volt coil. And the reason I'm not using the 12-volt coil wire, the original one, because remember on these earlier Fords and stuff, they have a lower voltage on the coil itself. And so if you ever go to switch over to a bigger distributor like a MSD or something like that, you need a full 12-volt strong signal. And that lower voltage circuit is not going to do it. So since we're repurposing circuits, I can go ahead and do that. Now I'm going to leave that circuit in there again in case someone wants to go backwards with this. They can. And I'm actually leaving most of the circuits in the harness so that somebody could actually do that. So that's where we're at there. Inside the car, we have the harness laid out. Let me get the light in here. It's kind of dark. So the harness is laid out. Oh, there you go. Now you can see it. So the harness is laid out where it needs to be. Everything looks good. I did make a couple changes in the actual part. So back here, let me just stick this in here so we can, sorry about that. Okay, so we can talk a little bit about this. There we go, that's good enough. And so this leg over here that goes to all of those, you see the little blue wraps, that's going to be my module. And so I have all of the stuff in there that I need. I have the turn signals and high beams and all that kind of stuff. All that's wrapped in there. What I'm going to do as a additional harness that's going to come in instead of integrating it is the other part of the add-on harness. So Dakota Digital has its own circuits for oil pressure and water temperature and speed. And so those will all come in on their own harness. That way it's separated from old and new. Again, I'm always thinking of that next person and the struggle that they would have trying to go back to original and trying to make it as easy on them as possible without changing too much stuff. So I'm going to add that harness in here. This car it did have an optional AC. So there was a underdash AC that hung down right here. The circuits were in there for it, but the AC, the owner has it. He's not sure if he's going to put it back in. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the power from that to power, and that would be key on power for the module. And then if you ever wanted, and I'm not going to cut it up or anything, I'm just going to wind it up in the loom. So that way if you wanted to pull it out and put it back over there, honestly, it's just a yellow wire with a little bullet fuse in it. So he could always just add another one if he wanted to. But so there's that. And then the last wire is the ground circuit going back to the fuel tank for the sending unit, because Dakota Digital wants you to run its own dedicated ground to the ground wire. So I'll run that back. I'm going to put that as a separate circuit that'll be on the separate side of the harness. So if you ever wanted to take this out, all of those additional circuits that are added just for the Dakota Digital are going to be in their own little mini harness. So you could easily just take that out, and then you're stuck back with the original. Then all you'd have to do is just take and put all the light bulbs and all the things back onto this harness, and then everything would plug back in. I don't know if somebody would do that, but again, I'm always trying to think of that next guy and what he's going to have to go through, because you never know, that next guy may be you. So make it easy. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that harness out of there, and I'm going to start doing the final prep on that harness, doing the extensions for the module that's going to mount right there on that cross brace. And now that I can see everything looks good, works good, I'm going to get it back out one last time and do that. And after I do that, I'll take you out, kind of show you what I did real quick, and then we'll put it back in the car. The inside of the harness will be done at that point, and then all I got to do is just finish up the outside. The only reason I haven't really done anything with the harness on the outside is because I'm waiting for the owner's supposed to show up this morning and finish up the carburetor and intake manifold, all that kind of stuff. He wants to tune on the car a little bit. The best part about these older cars is all I have to do is jumper wire 12 volt to the coil, and then put your little lone wolf on the starter solenoid, and boom, motor runs. So you don't need the inside harness, you don't need any of that stuff. Easy to get running real quick. All right guys, I'm back here on the harness. Still on the bench, by the way. This is, it's a lengthy process. I'm not even going to kid you on that one. But I wanted to show you the last little bit before I button this thing up completely. Everything as it is, the way the last time I showed you, except for it's the length of the harness from the main harness that you can see over here to the module over there. So you can see, that's a good amount of, I just eyeballed it. You don't need to do exact numbers. And your car may differ, whatever, however far away you're going to put this thing. Just keep in mind, like on this car, since I'm sticking it above the steering column right there, I want to be able to rip it down, pull it down so I can work on it down and then stick it back up. So keep that in mind. That's why I did the lengths. And then the one thing I did want to show you is do future you a favor and you know, put some tags on the wires. We've changed some circuits around, we've done some stuff, you know, it's custom now. So do future you a favor and just put some tags on it. That way you know what's what. It'll help you out, it'll help out the next guy, you know, because on this end, if you notice over here on the module, they're all the same color. You know, I use red for the power, for the consistent power, but like key on power, ground, tack, they're all the same color. Over here, you know, left, right, brake, dimmer, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's all the same color because they're just jumper wires. There's a jumper wire starts about here and then it runs the rest of the length. So, you know, it's kind of a pain, but at the same time, I don't have a billion different circuits and a billion different gauges to run this correctly. So that's not a big deal. Just, you know, like I said, do yourself a favor, tags. So, all right. I think that's going to do it for off and out of the car. Now I'm going to go and get this thing installed. You'll notice that on the connector, I'm still missing the coolant, the oil, the speed, and there's also a ground wire for the fuel that's not in this section. Because what I wanted to do is I wanted to break it up into 2 sections. That way, if you wanted to take this out of the car, you could without fighting this other portion that's not really, you know, once that other portion goes in, it will be able to come out, but it's not going to come out as easy. Well, it'll be harder to take out if it was attached to this, basically. So it's going to be its own harness. About the same thickness. There's only 3 circuits in it, plus a little ground wire that has to go all the way back to the sending unit. So it'll have an extra little bit in there. No big deal. When I run that, what I'm going to do is run it parallel to this harness in the car, because now this is going to go in the car. And then I'll attach my circuits up here at the module, and then put some sheathing over top of it, just like this. And then just use some of that fabric wrap that I have, that soft wrap, and then just in a couple little spots, put little bands just to hold them together. That way it doesn't flop around in the car. And that'll be it. So the car itself has the harness in it, which it's kind of hard to see, and that's good because that's what you want. But you can see here, here's the temperature sensor. Here's the one going down to the oil down there. I have the tack and the power for the coil wired up, and then it goes back in that harness. Let me see if I can get you in there close enough to where you can see it. Spark plug wire. Let's see if I can get you. There it is. See, just goes all the way up the valley right there to the back, and then there's that connector for the harness, for the engine harness. Now that spring right there, it doesn't really matter too much. I'm going to get something to hold it down so that's kind of out of the way. But then you can kind of see where the harness comes this way, and then it's going to go right back up into the car right there. So that's it for that. I do have the connector for the voltage regulator, and then I still have to extend the wires for the alternator. Now I did. All right, guys, we're back here with the car. Honestly, I can't remember what I left off with. It's been, I don't know, 24 hours or something since I made the last one of these. I think we left off with the harness. Anyways, where I'm at now is the final stages of everything. So I wanted to stop. I've been moving really fast because I want to get this car back to the owner. It's about 2 days overdue. You know, things happen in the shop that delay stuff. Things here move slow but get done right. So let me get you in here, and I'm going to show you how I've finished out the engine bay, what everything looks like, and then I'm going to take you over to the finished harness. And before I go to put it in the car, I want you to take a look at that real quick, so you kind of have an idea maybe for your car. So let's get in here. Let's check this out. So it's kind of hard to see everything that I've done, and that's the way you kind of want it. So, you know, of course we have, I added the tachometer wire here to the coil, and of course I had to power the coil, so that one's down there. But then the harness just runs right here behind the distributor, and then meets up over here by the temperature sensor, and then you got this one wire here that goes down to the oil pressure, and then it all meets up into this harness right here that goes across the valley, goes all the way to the back, and then follows the stock harness location up there on those you know, wire, I think those are brake lines or something like that, and then goes over here, meets up with the original harness, and then goes through the firewall right there. So that spot that the harness goes through the firewall is where this car had a dealer installed underdash AC unit. He's not going to use that anymore. I didn't, of course, don't want to put multiple holes in the firewall. I just reused that hole to run the wires in. The circuit that comes out from the transmission is way down there. You can't see it, but it comes up. It comes up, of course, follows the frame right there, dips underneath the gearbox, and then comes up. You can kind of see that one circuit that's right here. That goes down to the transmission. So, like I was talking about before, when you do this across the valley right here, be careful and make sure that you're putting some type of retainer in here. I went and stole this off of my 65 convertible, kind of reshaped it, and then put it in here on this car, because you want to be very sure that you're not getting hung up here on the throttle, because if, you know, you're going down the street and you go to race the guy next to you or something, and you give it the beans and this thing gets stuck open in wide open throttle, it's going to be a wild ride. So watch that, be careful of that. Everyone, please, if you're doing this, make sure you're paying attention to that. Even if you're not doing this and you just have your regular car, check this harness, because this is where most of Chevys, Fords, Chryslers, all that kind of stuff, they put their harness on this side. So check that. Make sure that that is away from your throttle assembly there. That's going to do it for underneath the hood. So under the car, under the hood, completely done. I don't have any more to do there now. So all I have left to do now is get the interior harness back in the car and hook up the harness where it meets the outside of the car here, and then this will be done. So let's take a look at that final harness one more time before it goes into the car. So this is the stock harness here with all of the stock parts. This big long leg, of course, is that new leg. When I initially took it out of the car, it was maybe about like this long, right? I added all that length to it. Remember, because I want to be able to reach up and pull that module down, work on it if I have to, and then reach up and stick it back up on top of the, on that brace. So that's why I've got this really long, it's not overly done. I can wrap it up and put it off to the side on top of this harness, and it won't get in the way of anything. Of course, it's all wrapped up real nice, so it won't look like this big rat's nest. And then this is what I was talking about with the module and bringing your circuits in. Make sure all of your circuits are laid out real nice. Nothing's snug. Nothing's being pulled on. Everything's got, you know, nice loose. And then make sure all your connections are nice and tight. Same with this side. You got this big, long, swoopy, you know, leg coming off. Everything's nice and loose. That way you're not pulling on any of those circuits real hard. This little switch here, this is a programming switch that you have to put in, because when you go to do the calibration and that kind of stuff, you need this switch. I usually don't mount these in the car, because the only time you're ever going to use it is to do any type of programming with the Dakota Digital. So what I'm going to do with this one is I'm just going to drop it in the ashtray, and then once they do all the programming with it, either they can just leave it in the ashtray or they can wind it up underneath the dash, put a little zip tie on it or something. I did add this circuit to the dash lights, because remember, this car does have a factory radio in it, and that radio does light up at night. So I added this to give it that, that illumination that it needs. So really that's it. This is the entire harness. This is the last time it'll be sitting out on the table like this, at least until we go to do the big motor and get that done and wrapped up. So this is the last time we're going to see the car like this. So this is a good time for you to go through, double check everything, make sure you got everything the way you want it to go. You don't need to add any circuits. You don't need to do anything other than just put the harness in the car, because this is the time that you want to go through and double check all of your work. You'll notice that when I brought those circuits in the car, so this is your transmission, your oil pressure, and your water temp. I didn't cut any of them. I left them the length that Dakota Digital sent them to me, because adding the wire back once you've cut it is difficult. You can do it, it's difficult. You don't really want to do it. So I left them long, just put them through the firewall. Once I get the harness back in the dash, then I'll go ahead and figure out how much of this I need, cut back what I don't, and then again, I'm going to leave these long as well so I can pull this down from the dashboard and operate on it. So really this is going to be the last step. Right now I'm going to go put the dashboard, I'm going to put the dash harness back in it for the last time, and then I'm going to measure how much of that circuits that I need, cut that off, hook those into the module, put a little bit of tape on it, that cloth tape that I use, put a little bit of that cloth tape on it, and then that'll be it. It'll be done. Before I go to put the gauges back in it, I'll get you guys back out here so we can see it one last time before I mount the gauges, and then maybe I'll mount the gauges live, so that way you can see, kind of how that goes. But this car does runs and drives. It doesn't have a windshield, so I think once I get it going, I'm going to test all the gauges, the water, the oil, the charging, that kind of stuff. Make sure everything's actually working right, and then if it is, everything looks good, I'm going to go ahead and drive it up the street and back. I have an industrial street right here that I can drive it up and back with no windshield, and it's not a big deal. I just needed to make sure that tachometer, or not tachometer, the speedometer is actually working and moving. There should be any problems there, but I want to check it before the owner actually gets it. So let me get started on that, and once I get that in, I'll get you guys back out here. We'll take a look and see it for one last time. All right, guys, I wanted to pause for a second so I can show you what I got going on here. The harness is 75 maybe percent installed. All the hard parts are done. I'm just kind of finishing up the module and going to final place that. But before I did that, I wanted to show you what I got going on here. So let me get you over here. So this is the module as it sits now, and you'll notice that I can take it out. The harness is in the car. I can take it out from underneath the dashboard, set it on the seat, and now I can work on it. Again, on your car, you're gonna have to figure out how much space you can actually, how much line you can actually fit underneath the dashboard. This car doesn't have too much. Basically, what I did was up here in the corner of the dashboard, I rolled the harness up, and then it looped back over and across to the steering column. That's how I did this car. Every car is going to be different. So maybe this is a little bit shorter and you can only get it down here by the pedals or something. But this is the way I like to do it. It's really nice this way, especially now since I've paralleled the harnesses next to each other. I've got the engine harness from the dashboard. I've got all the new harness coming out from underneath the hood. And I'm able to just set it here on the seat. Now I'm going to go ahead and plug all the circuits into the back of the module, and then final place the module up into the dashboard. All right, guys, I am here at the shop still, and it is extremely late. Like everyone's asleep right now. There's probably a couple people maybe stumbling back from the bar, but it's super late. I did not want to stay this late, but I had to get this car done. I got to get it out of here. I got a lot of other projects to get to. So it was one of those things where you just got to get it done. I'm sure a lot of you have seen those same nights where you start a project, you think it's going to go pretty good, and then you got to be to work, so you got to finish it up. So, but regardless, it's all done. The alternator isn't charging. When I excite the field, it starts charging, but it won't stay where you could shut it off and then turn it back on and it'll keep charging. It's an old alternator off my 65 hardtop. I don't think it was any good to begin with. So I'm pretty sure the wiring's right. It is pretty late, but I'm pretty confident the wire's right. The owner of this car is very competent. So I'm done. I got the gauges in, all that's done, the wiring's done, everything's done. Although I did have to spend a lot of time chasing down gremlins. So, you know, one, converting a generator car to an alternator car, I had that struggle. All of the stuff on the inside of the car, as far as the wiring harness goes, was set up for a generator. So when you're pulling constant power wire from a generator system to now an alternator system with wiring that's changed, it gets a little more complicated. So there was a few things that I had to address before I could actually slap the gauges in the dashboard and be done with it. So there was a lot of pinning back and forth, working through problems, going over to the wiring diagram, seeing how I could solve this problem or solve that problem. Those are the things you're going to run into whenever you're doing this job. Dakota Digital's awesome, but I'll tell you right now, these old cars do not like lots of wires. It's everyone that I've done has been kind of this way, where you think you're going to button it up that day, and it actually is a day or two later that you actually finish it up. That's just kind of the way it goes. So, but the car turned out great. I really love the way it looks. The wiring harness turned out awesome. Everything fits fantastic. Nothing's stacked on top of something else and all, you know, messed up. So let me get you in the engine bay one last time so you can see it pretty much didn't change, but let's check it out. So, sorry, I don't know if you can hear that. That's my exhaust fan going because I've had this thing running. So you can see the wiring harness as it runs down the valley there. Again, wanting to make sure that you put that keeper in that's on that valve cover bolt to hold that harness down, because you don't want that coming up and getting into your throttle. And I did have to take this harness off and kind of open it up. I changed around the circuit for the power on the coil, and when I did that, you got to remember over here on the Fords you have your starter, but then this extra wire, that's how the coil gets 12 volts when you're cranking on the car. So if you switch wires around and you're not using the same wire that it was supposed to, this brown wire, when you key the switch, this gets power, which sends power over here, but it also sends power here. So this wire here backs all the way across the car, all the way back over there to that connector, and it tees in to the coil wire on that connector, and then basically that coil wire comes back up and goes over to the coil. This brown wire never goes inside the car. All it does is go all the way across over to that connector and then tee in right at that connector and then come all the way back over here to that coil. If you don't have that set up, when you crank on the car, no vroom vroom. It's only until now if you got a really nice engine like this one, what happens is you turn the key and it crank, and then as you let the key go, you've basically let this go, which now is exciting the coil, and so then it'll fire off. If you've got enough rotational fuel air mixture going on, it'll bark off. So that's what it was doing. You could crank on this thing all day and it wouldn't do anything. The second you let it go, it would fire up, and that's because this brown wire. So I had to go through, fix that. Not a big deal. The owner didn't like the resistor wire, because what Ford did is they put a wire in here that's a resistor wire, and basically it pulls the voltage down from 12 volts to 9.5 volts. He didn't like the fact that wire was getting mega hot. Well, it's a resistor wire, that's what they do. And so he changed it around, and when I came in to do my job, I saw what he had done, and I thought that's what I needed to do. Come to find out, yeah, ran into a lot of problems. Long story short, engine bay is done, everything looks great, works great, and I'm signing off on it. Except for that stupid thing, but it is really, really old. I have no idea how old that thing is, but I know it is mega old. So, on to the whole reason we started this project. Let me get you off the stand here because I want to get you in the car so you can see, check this out. It is pretty cool. I like it. I think it turned out great. There they are. They're the gauges. They look great, especially for what this car is going to be, because it is going to be a retro mod. You know, of course, you got all your stock stuff, stock radio, all of that, and everything works. Even the cigarette lighter works. So you got all your gauges. You got all four your main gauges over here: your fuel, your water, your oil, and your volts. Speedo in the center, tack on the side. So you key it on, the gauges cycle, and then go. Start the car. And that's it. Tack works. Here, let me put the backlights on so you guys can see it a little bit better. I love the way the backlights work. Now, in order for you to actually dim these, you have to buy Dakota Digital's dimmer. They won't dim with the little dimmer knob. That's just the way it goes. I don't like putting the dimmer knob in there. The customer, the owner of this car, didn't want the dimmer knob, so they don't dim, but you can see they're not ultra bright. They're not in your face, super bright. I would turn the lights off in the shop, but I can't. They're automatic, so that's life. But tack works great. And you'll notice down here right now there's a clock, so I think that's the way it's going to stay, but it's configurable to say different things, do different things. If you had an automatic, I think you could set it up to where it would tell you what gear it's in, you know, that kind of stuff. There's a bunch of different things they can do. This is flashing, hey, set me up, that kind of stuff. Of course, it needs to be set up, no big deal. These over here are just doing their job, you know, they're living their life. So everything's working, everything's looking great. Of course, fuel isn't doing anything because it has to be calibrated. But yeah, that's it. That's the way it looks. So, you know, so I think it looks pretty good. I think, you know, the owner of this car is really going to love it. It's the first time he's ever done anything like this. Usually he's a very, you know, to the book classic restoration kind of guy. Me and his son kind of talked him into, you know, doing a little bit of a retro mod, trying it out. You know, it's fun. You have so much more flexibility with a car like this to do the fun things that you want to do instead of being held back by limitations on how the car was actually built from the factory. So I think it's a great car. Low mileage, this thing's totally cool. So and with the Dakota Digital, you can program whatever your mileage is. So, you know, if you're pulling your mileage out, your odometer out, and it has the mileage on there, during the setup process, it asks you to, you know, set the mileage. And then once it's set, it's set. You can't go in and change it after that. Now, if you messed up, I believe you can send it back to Dakota Digital and they'll zero it out for you again. Yeah, just don't mess up. But totally cool. I love it. I think it looks great. So when you turn the headlights on and you hit the high beams, you get the little blue high beam thing. You turn the turn signals on, it does the turn signal thing. Of course, they don't blink because this thing's got no lights in it. It just, you know, there's no resistance in the circuit. So, but I don't know what other lights can it do. Let's see. I think that's about it. That's really all you get with these cars. You got high beam, you got turn signals. Really, that's it. There's not much more to it than that. They're pretty simple, but You know, you go through and you check out stuff like the dome light, make sure that comes back on. I don't have door pin switches, so I can't check the door pin switches. I do have the radio, so with this one you got to turn the radio on for the light to come on. So you can see that the light does work with the radio, and the radio does work. You just go through and you check all the stuff to make sure everything's operating the way it should be, and that's it really. So I'm glad you guys came on this adventure. I got one last part to this. We're going to deliver the car in the morning, and then I'll do my sign off. Hopefully this video hasn't gotten too long, which I don't think it has. It's been a lot of, you know, check it out and then stop, check it out and then stop. So we should be okay. I hope this was an informative video for you guys. I hope it helps you to maybe install some Dakota Digital gauges in your car. And then of course, if you have any questions about the process or you're interested, you know, you can send me a message or just go on to dakotadigital.com and check them out there. They have a very knowledgeable and helpful staff. So, all right, guys, I'll be back in the morning to deliver the car, and I'm going to bring you along. So until then. All right, guys, we are back. And as you can see, there's something missing, you know, this area, it's all empty now. I got the car back to the owner. He was happy to get the car back. I had a late night last night, as you know. And I wanted to take you guys along when I dropped it off, but honestly today I'm so just hammered. It's been a long week. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving. I'm ready to just kind of shut it down. Obviously I need to do a sign off, and so that's what this is. So he got it back. Everything's great. Dakota Digital works awesome. It looks awesome. He's really happy with that. We are struggling with a little bit of an alternator issue. The car's not charging. We've been back and forth. I mean, setting up an alternator system is very simple. But when you've modified a car and you've added stuff and more stuff and more stuff, it's more than just going, oh, my alternator's not working, so I need to change my voltage regulator. You got to go through the process. You got to start pinning out all the circuits and making sure everything's connected right. And it's a little bit more involved than just throwing parts at it. You always want to know why something broke before you try and fix it, because otherwise you'll just throw parts at it. Parts cannon is never the way to go. So there's that little bit of an issue, but it's not a big deal. He'll get it worked out, and then the car will be charging and everything will be fine. He's got a lot of work ahead of him as far as finishing that car. His plan is to finish sand the car, 3000 grit the whole car, polish the whole car out, doing piece by piece by piece, and adding all of the trim and chrome and stainless, and finishing each piece and moving to the next piece, and really just kind of finishing the car out. It still needs headliner, interior, windshield. It needs a slew of parts. So it's going to be a while before that car's done. He's working out of his house. He doesn't have a shop like me, so he does have another very, very, very cool car, and I'm going to show that car to you right now. We're not going to get really in depth on this car at this time. I'm going to save all of the stuff about this car for when I go to pick up my new car. I'm going to introduce this car to you now, and then we'll go over all the specs and everything about this car, which makes it so special. At the same time, I'm going to show you my new car that I just bought. So that'll be Sunday. I'll take off to go pick that up. I'll be back here late Monday night. So Tuesday morning, I'll probably start to make that video on it. But for now, let's take a look at what I picked up from his house so that he had room to work on his Fairlane. So this is the granddaddy of all Galaxy 7-liter Q codes. This car is decked out in every single way. It has all the options. It's known in the 7-liter community. It is very, very cool. Again, I'm going to go over a lot of the specs on this car when we see my new car. So right now I'm just kind of giving you a little teaser, showing you the car. I can tell you that this car has electric windows and vacuum operated door locks. as well as a convertible top and a 4-speed. This car is super cool. Very, very clean. Very clean. He's put seat covers on it just to preserve the seats. So when you sit in it, you don't have to worry about getting the seats dirty or anything. Now, one of the things you'll notice with this car is it's not perfect. Well, on camera, it probably looks very perfect, but there are little things like a rock chip here, and I'll explain why all that stuff still exists later. But how pretty is this? This is 100% original, 100%. You can't get more original than this, except for the wheels, of course. Magnum 500s did not come on these cars. In fact, in order to fit those, you have to run a spacer because the Kelsey Hayes brakes are so large that there's only one wheel that'll fit this car, and it's a steel wheel. And so these were steel wheel hubcap cars, all of them. The only way you can put that on there is to run a spacer to get the wheel away from the brake caliper. So that's not original, but he does have the original wheels. These just look way cooler. So how cool is this car? I know I'm saying the same thing, just kind of walking around it, but absolutely gorgeous. So I'm going to save underneath the hood, and I'll talk to you a lot more about this car because this car has a history behind it. When I bring the new car that I bought, we're going to have quite a few Galaxies in the shop. We've got the red hardtop automatic. We got the convertible 4-speed, fully decked out. It's really cool, at least to me. I love these cars, and to be in the presence of two of them is awesome. You know, to have two in your shop. This one obviously is not mine. It's just a guest. It'll stay here as a guest. We won't touch it. I'm not even going to drive it. So, you know, that car, I'll tell you how much that car is worth, estimated, on that next video. But man, I'm excited. This is totally cool. I love Galaxies. To have two 7-liters in my shop. One that the owner owns, which I always consider mine, so that's my 7-liter. And then to have another one in here is totally cool. And wait until Tuesday when I show you what I bought. But until then, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all of you. And remember, if you have any questions on that Dakota Digital build, you can always reach out to Dakota Digital. I'm not paid by them. This is not a sponsored thing. I just really love their product. I've had to call them before and talk to them. Their tech team is really good. Their sales team is awesome. It's a really great product. So if you're looking for something to kind of modernize your classic car, give them a call. I can tell you it is a little bit involved. You can see on camera how much it actually took, but you know, it's worth it. In the end, it's really worth it. The owner of the 63, he is very happy. I mean, he should be. He owns this, but he's very happy with the Fairlane. It really turned out nice. So if you have any questions for me on it, I would be more than happy to answer them. Otherwise, reach out to Dakota Digital. I'm sure they'd be happy to answer any questions you have. But thank you guys for watching. And if you haven't already done so, please like and subscribe. And tell your friends, you know, I'm here. So, and to all of you out there, happy Thanksgiving. Have a great holiday. Be safe. And I'll see you on Tuesday.